everybody, I'm Dr. Lisa Erickson, and today we're going to discuss capsular contractures. Capsules of joints are the plastic bag that holds the bones together, specifically the fluid and all the tissue between the two bones that all the motion occurs within that region. The muscles around the joint need to be loose and supple and flexible in order to do the motion we're looking for, but also inside that joint we need to have the range of motion so that we're able to do these motions without hurting ourselves. So the average climber is very much able to reach back and upwards very easily with their shoulder joint. However, the opposing motion of internal rotation and adduction is missing. So today we're going to discuss how to get that motion, and I have a Rogue Fitness band, which is a very stretchy type rubber material, and this band is going to be your new best friend in training these things out of our bodies. So our goal is mobility, and once we have mobility, then we're working on stability, which is getting the flexibility into a region and then train the muscles how to use that region as well as how to stabilize it. So further down the kinetic chain, into the elbow, into the wrist, into the fingers, we don't have these injuries because we're compensating for an immobile or structurally unstable region. So with the shoulder, I'm just going to get down here so you can see it. As you lift the arm up, we do not want the head of the humerus lifting up within the joint. We want it to stay down. We want it to stay firmly intact in its joint. The head of the shoulder, if we were to look at this anatomically, the shoulder itself is actually your shoulder blade. The scapula is the base of your shoulder. We call that the glenoid fossa, or it's almost shaped like a saucer for your little teacup. So that is what the head of the humerus sits in. It is not shaped like a cup or a ball and socket. It is a flat, round piece of bone with the head of our humerus up against it. As we lift our arm up in the socket, it is supposed to be doing this motion, but it is not supposed to be gliding in this fashion. So just sticking your hand onto the head of your humerus, the round bone in here, directly above it, if you were to feel, is the acromion process, which is a broad, flat bar of bone that sticks out. So we're just going to stick our hand in here and feel around. You're going to feel the broad bone over the top, which is part of your scapula, and then below it you're going to feel the ball, which is the humerus. The thicker, the tighter your deltoid muscle over the top, the less likely you are to be able to feel these structures. So then you just have to kind of play along and use your understanding of what the anatomy looks like. So with your hand on top of your humerus, we're going to raise up our arm bone, and I want you to see and feel, does your humerus lift up in the socket? And we also want to check to see, is that bone popped forward? So from the side view, I want my humerus down and flat. And as I lift my arm up, I don't want that humerus to glide up in its joint, and I definitely don't want it to glide forward in its joint. Those are both abnormal motions of the humerus. So in those people that are constricted or unable to raise their arm without this bone coming up, or they just get locked out where they can't go any higher, that's where these bands, these mobility bands, come in. Always when using these mobility bands, we want 3 points of contact. So we either want both of our feet on the ground and a hand, or we want to be holding onto something, and I have a rail right over here that you can't see in the picture. So definitely getting into that with the idea that your body feels stable and it doesn't feel at risk of injuring itself, we can get more done. So I'm just going to hold on to my rail over here and gently leaning forward into this. The band is pulling down, and it's also distracting my shoulder joint backwards, not letting the head of that humerus come forward as we're doing these motions. So you can either do that motion, you can hold your arm across and pulling backwards this way, we are pulling that bone down into the socket, and we want to be able to do lots of motions with that joint being in a stable position. So kind of play with it, and our whole goal is Kelly Starrett would say, he is the owner of the website mobilitywod.com. WOD stands for workout of the day. He's a big CrossFitter, but these are all borrowed from basic sports medicine principles, and the goal of this is to mobilize this joint so that we are able to get end range of motion out of that joint while teaching that joint or training, stretching that joint into the mechanics that we have to have in order to climb. If you are reaching up for something and your shoulder's rolling forward, you just lost 15% of your power, your torque. You've lost a ton of torque. So we need to be able to keep that shoulder down, keep the shoulder back, keep the elbow down. And if you catch yourself cheating with your elbow popping up or your shoulder rolling forward as you're doing things, we really need to focus on this region and get it stable and get it controlled. And a lot of the exercises we give you for the shoulder are for training the brain how to control the joint motion in space. But definitely with this band that we're using, this is more of a mobility issue, and we're actually affecting the joint deep down inside that joint and stretching it out. So different things to think about. So that is how these bands come into play. You can use them on your ankles, you can use them on your knees, you can use them on your elbows, and we'll get into those later. But today it was pretty focused on the shoulder. Hope you enjoy.